Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about on Stop Playing Small. It's time to rise when we play small. We often think we're doing it for the sake of peace. We say we don't want to cause trouble, don't want to rock the boat, don't want to stand out too much. We convince ourselves that modesty means minimizing our presence, that humility means shrinking our voice, and that playing small somehow protects us from judgment, criticism, or failure. But that's not humility, that's hesitation wrapped in fear. And more importantly, that's a disservice to the world. The world doesn't benefit from people who hide their light. It doesn't evolve through silence. It doesn't grow through people staying comfortable and quiet. Every major shift in history, in culture, and leadership, and innovation was started by someone who dared to step up, stand tall, and speak out. Someone who refused to play small. When you withhold your ideas, your gifts, your energy because you don't want to seem too much, what you're really doing is robbing others of the chance to be changed by what you bring. You think about that. Playing small doesn't make you noble, it makes you invisible. And the truth is, the world is already full of noise. It doesn't need more silence from those who have something real to say. What happens when you play small is that you unconsciously give permission for others to do the same. You create a culture where playing safe becomes the standard. You model that hiding your fire is acceptable. But people don't follow whispers, they follow fire. They follow conviction. They follow someone who dares to stand at their full height. And here's the deeper truth: playing small is selfish. That's hard to hear, but it's real. Because when you shrink, you're making it about you. About your discomfort, about your fear of being seen. But leadership isn't about comfort, it's about contribution. And contribution doesn't come from hiding. It comes from showing up when it's easier not to, from speaking up when the room is quiet, from being bold when the instinct is to retreat. So often we tell ourselves we're not ready, that we need more experience, more clarity, more credentials. But sometimes what we really need is courage, because readiness is a myth that keeps us stuck in preparation. We prepare endlessly, perfecting, tweaking, rehearsing, but never actually stepping into the arena. And while we rehearse our smallness, someone else somewhere is daring to be seen, not because they're better, but because they've decided they won't let fear be the driver anymore. When you play small, you delay not only your growth, but the ripple effect of your potential. Your influence doesn't start the day you feel fully confident. It starts the day you stop apologizing for taking up space. It starts when you decide that your voice matters not in comparison to others, but on its own terms. People are waiting for someone to go first, to lead, to speak, to light the torch. And often that person is you. But if you wait for permission, if you wait for the world to roll out a red carpet and say, now is your time, you'll wait forever. You have to claim that time. You have to choose to stop dimming your light to make others comfortable, because the world doesn't need more comfortable people, it needs awake ones, alive ones, bold ones. Playing small might feel safe, it might even feel polite, but it's neither. Safety is an illusion when your soul is screaming for expansion. And politeness is hollow when it silences your purpose. Your presence, your full, unfiltered presence is not a threat. It's a gift. And the longer you tuck it away behind hesitation, the longer the world goes without what only you can bring. So understand this: your light was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to illuminate. Your voice was never meant to be softened into silence. It was meant to stir hearts. Your purpose was never meant to be squeezed into a box labeled acceptable. It was meant to stretch boundaries, defy limits, and expand what others thought was possible. There's a silent lie we tell ourselves far too often, and it's this: I'm just being humble. It sounds noble. It sounds virtuous. But most of the time it's not humility, it's fear. It's fear dressed up in polite language. It's fear hiding behind phrases like, I don't want to seem arrogant, I'm not ready yet, or maybe I should let someone else take the lead. These aren't humble thoughts. They're self-sabotaging thoughts. And if we're not honest with ourselves, we let fear wear the mask of humility and call it wisdom. True humility is strength under control. It's confidence without the need for applause. But shrinking yourself so you don't make others uncomfortable, that's not humility. That's avoidance. That's hesitation. That's fear whispering in your ear, trying to sound like virtue. Fear is clever. It doesn't always show up with panic or dread. Sometimes it's quiet, reasonable, responsible. Even it says things like, don't put yourself out there, you might embarrass yourself. Or, who do you think you are to speak up? Or, play it safe, you've got too much to lose. Fear rarely comes as a scream. It often comes as a whisper that sounds just rational enough to keep you still. And when that whisper gets loud enough, we call it humility. But it's not. It's fear, dressed in a clean shirt and tie, pretending it's looking out for you. How many dreams have been buried under the weight of humility? How many leaders stayed silent in meetings they were born to lead? How many innovators held back ideas that could have changed lives because they were afraid to seem like they were reaching too far, wanting too much, standing out too brightly? We've glorified the idea that staying small is somehow noble, that lowering your eyes, softening your voice, and keeping your ideas to yourself is a sign of good character. But it's not. It's fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of standing out, fear of being seen. It's time to stop confusing humility with hiding, because real humility doesn't say I'm not enough. Real humility says, I don't need to be more than I am. Who I am is already worthy. There's no need to overperform, to over-explain, or to over-apologize, but there's also no need to underperform in the name of playing it safe. You can be grounded and still be bold. You can be kind and still be powerful. You can be humble and still take up space. These things are not opposites, they are complements. Fear wants you to think that humility means always being the second choice, that it means staying quiet even when your heart is telling you to speak. But what if the bravest thing you can do is raise your hand and say, I have something to add? What if the most humble act is trusting that your voice matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest? There is nothing humble about playing beneath your potential. There is nothing noble about withholding your gifts. You weren't given your vision, your voice, your ideas so you could bury them. You were given them because someone somewhere needs what only you can offer. But fear doesn't want you to believe that. Fear wants you to believe that if you step out, people will judge you. They might. Fear says if you take the spotlight, you'll be labeled as attention-seeking. Maybe. But fear never mentions what happens if you don't step out. It never talks about the regret, the missed moments, the dreams that collect dust. So many people walk through life with the volume turned down on who they are not because they lack talent, but because they've convinced themselves that staying quiet is safer. They've confused safety with purpose. They think smallness will protect them from failure when in reality, it's keeping them from fulfillment. Fear convinces you that blending in will keep you secure when in fact it only keeps you stuck. What most of us call humility is really a strategy for staying hidden. It's a clever way to avoid risk without admitting we're afraid. But hiding doesn't lead to growth. It leads to stagnation. And you can't live your purpose while sitting on the sidelines pretending you're just being modest. Playing it small and calling it humility is how we silence ourselves without even realizing it. From the moment we're born, we are taught how to fit in. Stand in line, don't speak too loud, don't make a scene, follow the rules, do what's expected. And somewhere along the way, many of us start to believe that success means acceptance and acceptance means conformity. We trade our boldness for belonging. We begin to dim parts of ourselves just to match the room we're in. But the truth is, you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out. Blending in might feel easier. It feels safer to keep your head down, to echo popular opinions, to walk the familiar path paved by others. It's comfortable to follow the script that's already written, but comfort is not your calling. You were not created to be a carbon copy. You were born with fingerprints no one else has, a voice no one else carries, and a perspective no one else can replicate. And when you suppress those things in order to fit in, you deny the world something only you can give. Conformity is a slow death for the soul. It tells you to play it cool when you want to be passionate. It tells you to tone it down when your spirit wants to erupt. It tells you to wait your turn when your heart is ready to lead. But your inner fire was not made for moderation. It was made to ignite. You weren't made to sit quietly in the background of your own life, nodding along while your dreams shrink smaller by the day. You were meant to take up space, not in arrogance but in truth, not to overshadow others but to let them see what's possible when someone fully owns who they are. We often misunderstand visibility. We're taught that being seen is the same as being self-centered, that standing tall is attention-seeking. But there is a massive difference between being driven by ego and being led by purpose. When you embrace your uniqueness, when you stop trying to match everyone else's tone, speed, or rhythm, you don't just find your voice, you give others permission to find theirs. Because courage is contagious. When someone rises, others feel it. When someone stops apologizing for who they are, others begin to wonder if they can do the same. Blending in doesn't lead to greatness. It leads to mediocrity. It keeps you stuck in roles that don't fit, relationships that drain you, and environments that were never built for your growth. You start to bend to match expectations until you don't even recognize yourself. You nod yes when your soul is screaming no. You play roles you were never meant to play. And slowly, piece by piece, you disappear. But there comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes roaring, when you realize the cost of blending in is too high. That shrinking is suffocating. That agreeing to live someone else's version of your life is not success, it's surrender. That moment, the one where you feel the urge to step out, to speak up, to reclaim your identity, is the beginning of your return to self. You don't owe the world your compliance. You owe it your authenticity. You don't have to fit into every room you walk into. Sometimes you're meant to change the room. Your energy, your presence, your perspective, those are not liabilities. They're assets, but they only become powerful when you own them, not edit them, not water them down, own them fully. We've created a culture that idolizes similarity, that rewards repetition, that celebrates fitting in. But innovation, disruption, impact, those don't come from the crowd, that come from the fringe, from the ones who weren't afraid to stand alone, the ones who didn't ask for validation before moving forward, the ones who knew they'd never belong if they kept abandoning themselves to be accepted. You were not born to live a muted version of yourself. You were not designed to dilute your essence just to make others more comfortable. You weren't built to repeat the same life as everyone else and call it purpose. You were built to challenge, to uplift, to break molds, and to lead with something real. There's a moment in every person's life where they must make a choice. Not a choice between good and bad, or right and wrong, but a choice between staying hidden behind excuses or stepping into ownership. And it's in that decision, the one where you stop waiting for external validation, stop waiting for circumstances to change, and instead take full responsibility for your life, that real power is born. Because power doesn't come from your title, your background, your resources, or your connections. Power comes from ownership. And until you own your story, your voice, your truth, you will always feel like you're standing on the outside of your own life. Ownership is not about controlling everything. It's not about having all the answers or avoiding mistakes. Ownership means looking in the mirror and saying, this is my life, these are my choices, and I am responsible for what I do next. It's easy to blame others, easy to point to the past, to unfair systems, to missed opportunities and say, that's why I'm stuck. But staying stuck is also a decision. And until you recognize that your next step is yours to make, you'll keep waiting for someone to come save you. No one is coming to hand you the life you want. No one is coming to place your dream in your lap, tie it with a bow, and say, here, now it's easy. Ownership means you stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions. You stop living based on how they see you and start living based on who you know you are. Because as long as your self-belief is tied to someone else's reaction, you'll be a prisoner to their validation. The day you take ownership is the day you stop waiting and start creating. It's when you stop hoping the right moment will show up and realize that the right moment is the one you step into with both feet. Ownership says, even if I didn't cause this, I'm still responsible for how I respond. It's not about fault, it's about freedom. Because you can't be free if you're constantly blaming. Blame keeps you trapped. Ownership sets you free. You want to know where your power lives? It lives in your decision to show up fully, even when it's hard. It lives in your ability to speak your truth, even when it shakes your voice. It lives in your refusal to let your past dictate your future. When you own your story, the light and the dark, you stop letting shame define you. You stop editing your identity to fit someone else's comfort zone, and you stop apologizing for who you've had to become to get where you are. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes with ownership. It doesn't always shout. It doesn't always fight, but it stands firm. It stands grounded in truth. Because when you've owned your journey, you don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to prove anything. Your presence speaks for itself. You become unshakable not because you're invincible, but because you're anchor responsibility. When you take ownership, you reclaim time. You stop saying, I wish I could, and start saying, here's what I'm doing. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. Every L step becomes a statement. Every action becomes a declaration, not to the world, but to yourself. A reminder that you are not a passive observer of your own life. You are the architect. You are the one who gets to build, to create, to destroy what no longer serves you and rise from it. Ownership requires brutal honesty. It demands that you face your patterns, your choices, your limitations. Not with shame, but with courage, because once you see them clearly, you can shift them. Ownership doesn't mean perfection, it means presence. It means you show up, you stop hiding behind blame, behind circumstances, behind fear, and instead step forward with authority, even if your voice trembles. Even if the path ahead is uncertain. Even if you're still healing. You step forward because the power to lead your life has been yours all along, buried beneath the lies, waiting to be claimed the moment you decide to take it back. There is a quiet but powerful truth that shapes how the world works. The world doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to boldness. It responds to the ones who step into rooms like they belong there, who speak like their words carry weight, who move forward without waiting for perfect timing. You don't have to be the loudest, the most educated, the most experienced, or the most connected. But if you are bold, truly bold in spirit, in action, in presence, the world cannot help but notice. Boldness isn't arrogance. It isn't about pretending to be more than you are. It's not a mask. It's not a performance. Boldness is about full presence. It's about standing in your own authority, even if your knees are shaking. It's the decision to show up when every voice in your head is screaming for you to sit back down. Boldness is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear run the show. The world meets you at your level of energy. If you move through life hesitantly, doubting your place, minimizing your presence, the world mirrors that back. Doors don't open for those who wait quietly in the hallway, hoping to be invited in. Doors open when you knock like you belong on the other side. Opportunities come to those who move like they know where they're going, even if the path isn't fully clear. The world rewards momentum, not indecision. Boldness disrupts expectations. It breaks patterns. It challenges norms. And most of all, it commands attention. That's why it's uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. Boldness puts you in the spotlight. It demands visibility. It forces you to be seen, heard, and counted. And for many, that feels terrifying. But boldness is also where transformation lies. If you want to shift your life, truly shift it, you won't find that shift in passivity. You'll find it in moments when you step forward without waiting for the path to be guaranteed. Being bold means asking for what you need. It means taking the stage when it's offered, and sometimes even when it's not. It means applying for the job that feels out of reach, starting the business you keep imagining, sharing the idea that others might not understand yet. It means leading before you feel entirely ready. Because the truth is, no one ever feels completely ready. Readiness is an illusion. The world doesn't wait for you to feel ready, it waits for you to act. You cannot tiptoe your way into greatness. You cannot whisper your way into influence. You cannot shrink your way into leadership. If you want to rise, you must declare yourself through your actions, through your words, through the energy you bring into every room. That declaration is boldness, not noise, not force, but conviction. Boldness is magnetic. When people see someone who is bold, they don't always know why, but they feel something shift. It's not about dominance, it's about authenticity without apology. A bold person doesn't demand attention, they command it by being fully aligned with who they are and unafraid to show it. And in a world where so many are pretending, people can feel the difference when someone is real. That's why boldness creates momentum. One bold move leads to another. One decision to speak up sparks a series of actions that shift your trajectory. Boldness doesn't always lead to immediate success, but it always leads to movement. It shakes things up, it challenges the status quo, and in that space of disruption, new possibilities emerge. There's a reason the world often seems to celebrate those who simply dare. It's not always the smartest, the most talented, or the most qualified who rise, it's the ones who move first, who risk being misunderstood, who step forward while others are still analyzing. Boldness doesn't wait for approval. It initiates, it leads, it lays first. Because boldness understands that the cost of staying quiet, still and safe is far higher than the cost of stepping out and being seen in a world saturated with noise, with content, with voices trying to be heard. The most powerful message you will ever deliver isn't something you say, it's who you are. Long before people trust your words, they feel your presence. Long before they believe in your mission, they observe your movement. You don't just communicate through speeches, presentations, or slogans, you communicate through the way you show up, how you carry yourself, the energy you bring into a room. You are the message. People can spot inconsistency faster than ever. They know when someone is posturing versus when someone is living it. They may not always be able to articulate it, but they can feel it. They sense alignment. They recognize authenticity. So the question becomes, are you living the very thing you claim to stand for? Does your walk match your talk? Are you embodying the standard you say you value? Because when you do, people don't just listen to you, they follow you. Not because you demanded it, but because your life has become the proof. You are the message when you get up after failure and keep moving forward, not with excuses, but with lessons. You are the message when you treat people with dignity, not because they can do something for you, but because that's who you are at your core. You are the message when you step into your purpose, not because it's popular, but because it's true to your design. And it's not always about being perfect, it's about being real, raw, human, grounded. It's in your willingness to be seen, flaws and all, that people begin to trust that you're not performing, you're living. We've been trained to perfect our pitch, polish our presence, craft the ideal image. But the real power isn't in perfection, it's in alignment. When your values, actions, and identity are in sync, people feel that harmony, even if they can't name it. It resonates on a level deeper than words, and that resonance is what creates impact that lasts. Because words may be forgotten, but how someone made you feel stays. When people encounter you, they aren't just hearing your message, they are experiencing it. This is why self-awareness is not optional. If you don't know who you are, you can't show up in integrity. If you haven't done the internal work, you can't expect external influence to last. You can fake charisma, but you can't fake character. So ask yourself, what message is your life sending when you're not speaking? What do people feel when they watch you from a distance? What are you communicating through the way you respond to pressure, adversity, criticism? Every interaction is a moment of messaging. Every decision, every reaction, every choice, it's all part of the transmission. You become the message not when you memorize lines, but when your life becomes the living testimony of what you believe. Leadership is not a title. Influence is not granted. These are earned through consistency, honesty, and embodiment. You want to inspire others. Be it. Be what you're asking them to believe in. Be the vision in motion. Be the evidence. People don't want more empty promises. They want to see what possibility looks like in real time. That means you go first. You become the example, not the echo. You don't have to be on a stage to be the message. You don't need a platform or a microphone. You just need to live your life out loud, aligned with your truth. Because someone is watching how you navigate the hard days. Someone is watching how you carry yourself when things don't go your way. Someone is watching to see if you mean what you say. And whether you realize it or not, you are always influencing. The question is not if you're the message, but what message you're sending. In this era where everyone is trying to be heard, the real leaders are not the loudest, they're the most aligned. The ones whose lives reflect the very change they hope to see. You don't need to campaign for influence when your life already speaks louder than words ever could. Your consistency becomes your credibility. Your actions become your authority. Your presence becomes your platform. Because the most unforgettable message the world will ever receive is not your content, it's your character. And that is entirely within your control.